Hey guys, how y'all doing? I'm here to give you guys a recap on the new episode of Shingeki no Kyojin Season 3, or you could call it Attack on Titan Season 3 on Episode 11. Now, those of you guys who are manga readers or just anime onlys who watch this episode will get the idea how important this episode is. Those who haven't, and just brand new and just watching this recap because you just want to get a summary of the entire episode instead of watching the 24 minutes of it, you guys will be very confused. So, if anything else, let's just get this started. We have to it at the beginning of the episode that Historia is trying to stop some kids running around, and she's actually running an orphanage that she wants to help all kinds of kids, especially the one in the underground who lost their parents, etc., have nowhere to go. And of course, this was actually revealed that Historia wants to help these kids who have nothing to live for, and after those who lost their parents. Of course, Levi supports this idea, especially the kids of the underground. Eventually, we have to it that this does help out, and of course, carrying some supplies, and Aaron's new experimental weapon of having to kill the Titans. It was pretty cool. And we see to it that Marlo and the others are pretty happy to see how things are. And of course, Jean, Armin, Mikasa, how everyone else actually figured out some things, while some other new recruits actually ask them, hey, are you guys okay? You guys seem a little off. And they ask them, do you really want to know? And they actually gave him this solemn expression, of saying, if you really want to know, this may not look really pretty. And they go well, I guess we'll ask another time. And this actually gets back on topic why they kind of have these kinds of faces on have these expressions on their faces, because that time about Connie's village, etc., about whatchamacallit, that the Titans could be humans. That's what bothers them the most. However, Levi says it's just a speculation, Nothing much more than that. When Eren also remembers something involving about his father, he realizes there's only one person who actually has a relation to him, and that is Keith Shadis, or should I say the guy who trained the recruits, And we see to it that that Hans, Levi, and everyone else ends up having to visit Keith Shadis, and therefore he decides to reveal the entire story how he met Grisha, and that's Eren's father. We see to it that we see to it that Keith says he met Grisha outside the walls, and decides to lock him up, but decides to show him around the entire district, etc. And eventually, Grisha himself becomes a doctor around here and ends up having to help a lot of people. Eventually, of course, when it comes to helping out Carla, etc., that's when Grisha ends up marrying her, And of course, Keith himself, he's been part of the scouts for a while, and he decides to be commander eventually. But, eventually he stepped down from being commander because he was nothing special. This was really something that has been a theme for Keith himself, or Shadis himself, the one who trains the recruits, etc., who wants to fight against the Titans. This is where things gotten really tense for Keith back then when he met Grisha. It's for you to actually become someone to venture the outside world, etc., you really got some guts. You had to be special to keep doing that. Of course, Keith himself thought he could be special and becomes the commander, of the scout regiment. But eventually that did not work out, so he stepped down. Of course, eventually things did not work out, of course, and we see to it that eventually a couple years pass by and one of the walls gets destroyed. And of course, Keith was concerned about what's going on here and there, and we see to it that eventually things gotten really dangerous and suspicious. This is where Grisha takes Eren to go talk to him in the forest, but Keith on the other hand cannot help his curiosity and eventually ends up having to follow Eren and Grisha after seeing a lightning blast here and there. Of course, he ends up finding Eren on the ground and carries him back to the shelter. And therefore, that's when he ends up having to explain, this is where I am today, I mean, all I know is I met Grisha, this and that happened, Kyler met your father met your mother, and then etc., etc., etc. Of course, Hanj actually scolds Keith for maybe hiding a secret like that and going like, why didn't you say this earlier? You know this could have helped us out way more than usual. You know that? But apparently that was not really the case here and there. Aside from that, we see to it that Keith remembers a couple words that he decides to pass on to Eren, you know? And that's like before Carla might have got, before maybe the last time he maybe spoke to Carla. And this is like, you don't need to be special, you know? Because Eren, this boy, he doesn't need to be great or better than anyone or better than anyone. He's just cute as he is, you know? As Carla explains it. And I'm thinking in my mind, that's really adorable, you know? A mother having to care for a child, thinking like thinking that they don't need to be better than anyone, but to become the best that they could be. And therefore, Eren takes these words to heart, and they all, after getting the questions answered, they decide to ride off and get ready for the possible next battle that could like determine what can happen next, you know. And there is a scene showed that Keith Shadys messed up Eren's equipment, that he tried to get Eren not to be involved with his blood death battle, but eventually he couldn't do a thing because Eren would still want to do this, you know? So he just calls himself a bystander who couldn't do anything at all. In the preview of next episode, it looks like to me things are about to get really more dangerous, especially you manga readers may know what I'm talking about. Preview of next episode is gonna play the scene about like maybe there might be hope and despair and what's to come eventually, because this is where a certain battle that I'm pretty sure a lot of you manga readers, especially myself, are waiting for. Those of you anime onlys or something might have had a feeling that this was going to come, you know? Be taking a certain wall that was destroyed, and of course we all know who destroyed that wall. And that's about it. So, pretty much this episode was about Keith Shadys himself, revealing his backstory with Grisha and how he met him and how this and that happened, and eventually how he found Eren one time in the forest when his father took him there, and etc. And of course, this is about Keith. And of course, overall, in simple summary as well, is that this is about Keith Shadys himself, you know, about his character, his persona, and everything about him, and why did he end up where he is in present time of Attack on Titan. So yeah, it was a pretty nice episode, knowing about Keith himself, along with many other things happening. But one thing for sure is like it's gonna get a little more tense from then on, after like next week's episode possibly. That's all I can really tell you for the time being. So until then, I will see you guys on my next video. So I'm Alpha Zero, people. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, peace out. Bye bye. Toot toot.